ask complete individual development for the general good, for the consensus of the competent on the whole round of human interest, and on all questions of national life. And here, each man must bear his share of the general burden. It is sad to see how soon friendless children are left to bear their own burdens before they can analyze their feelings, before they can even tell their joys and sorrows. They are thrown on their own resources. The great lesson that nature seems to teach us at all ages is self-dependence, self-protection, self-support. In youth, our most bitter disappointments, our brightest hopes and ambitions are known only to ourselves. Even our friendship and love we never fully share with one another. There is something of every passion in every situation we conceal. Even so, in our triumphs and defeats, the successful candidate for the presidency and his opponent each had a solitude peculiarly his own, and good form forbade either to speak of his pleasure or regret. The solitude of the king on his throne and the prisoner in his cell differs in character and degree, but it is solitude nonetheless. We ask no sympathy from others in the anxiety and agony of a broken friendship or a shattered love. When death sunders our nearest ties, alone we sit in the shadows of our affliction. Alike, amid the greatest triumphs and the darkest tragedies of life, we walk alone. On the divine heights of human achievement, eulogized and worshipped as a hero or a saint, we stand alone. In ignorance, poverty, and vice, as a pauper or a criminal, alone, we starve or steal. Alone, we suffer the sneers and rebuffs of our fellows. Alone, we are hunted and hounded through dark courts and alleys and byways and highways. Alone, we stand in the judgment seat. Alone, in the prison cell, we lament our crimes and misfortunes. Alone, we expiate them on the gallows. In hours like these, we realize the awful solitude of individual life, its pains, its penalties, its responsibilities. Hours in which the youngest and most helpless are thrown on their own resources for guidance and consolation. Seeing then that life must ever be a march and a battle, that each soldier must be equipped for his own protection, it is the height of cruelty to rob the individual of a single natural right. To throw an obstacle in the way of a complete education is like putting out the eyes. To deny the rights of property, like cutting off the hands. To deny political equality is to rob the ostracized of all self-respect, of credit in the marketplace, of recompense in the world of work, of a voice among those who make and administer the law, a choice in the jury before whom they are tried, and in the judge who decides their punishment. Shakespeare's play of Titus and Andronicus contains a terrible satire on women's position in the 19th century. Rude men, the play tells us, seized the king's daughter, cut out her tongue, cut off her hands, and then bade her go call for water and wash her hands. What a picture of women's condition. Robbed of her natural rights, handicapped by law and custom at every turn, yet compelled to fight her own battles, and in the emergencies of life, to fall back on herself for protection. The girl of 16, thrown on the world to support herself, to make her own place in society, to resist the temptations that surround her and maintain a spotless integrity, must do all this by native force or superior education. She does not acquire this power by being trained to trust others and distrust herself. If she wearies of the struggle, finding it hard work to swim upstream, and allows herself to drift with the current, she will find plenty of company, but not one to share her misery in the hour of her deepest humiliation. If she tries to retrieve her position, to conceal her past, her life is hedged about with fears lest willing hands should tear the veil from what she fain would hide. Young and friendless, she knows the bitter solitude of self. How the little courtesies of life on the surface of society, deemed so important from man towards women, fade into utter insignificance in view of the deeper tragedies in which she must play her part alone, where no human aid is possible. The young wife and mother, at the head of some establishment, with a kind husband to shield her from the adverse winds of life, with wealth, fortune, and position, has a certain harbor of safety, secure against the ordinary ills of life. But to manage a household, have a desirable influence in society, keep her friends and the affections of her husband, train her children and servants well, she must have rare common sense, wisdom, diplomacy, a knowledge of human nature. To do all this, she needs the cardinal virtues and the strong points of character that the most successful statesman possesses. An uneducated woman, trained to dependence, with no resources in herself, must make a failure of any position in life. But society says women do not need a knowledge of the world, the liberal training that experience in public life must give, all the advantages of a collegiate education. But when for the lack of this, the woman's happiness is wrecked, alone she bears her humiliation, and the attitude of the weak and the ignorant is indeed pitiful. In the wild chase for the prize of life, they are ground to powder. In age, when the pleasures of life are past, children grown up, married, gone, the hurry and hustle of life in a measure over, when the hands are weary of active service, when the old armchair and the fireside are the chosen resorts, then men and women alike must fall back on their own resources. If they cannot find companionship in books, if they have no interest in the vital questions of the hour, no interest in watching the consummation of reforms with which they might have been identified, they soon pass into their dotage. The more fully the faculties of the mind are developed and kept in use, the longer the period of vigor and active interest in all around us continues. If from lifelong participation in public affairs a woman feels responsible for the laws regulating our system of education, the discipline of our jails and prisons, the sanitary conditions of our private homes, public buildings and thoroughfares, an interest in commerce, finance, are in any or all of these questions, here, solitude will at least be respectable, and she will not be driven to gossip or scandal for entertainment. The chief reason for opening to every soul the doors to the whole round of human duties and pleasures is the individual development thus attained, the resources thus provided under all circumstances to mitigate the solitude that at all times must come to everyone. I once asked Prince Kropotkin, the Russian nihilist, how he endured his long years in prison, deprived of books, pen, ink, paper. Ah, he said, I had thought out many questions in which I had a deep interest. In the pursuit of an idea, I took no note of time. When tired of solving knotty problems, I recited all the beautiful passages in prose or verse I have ever learned. I became acquainted with myself and my own resource. I had a world of my own, a vast empire that no Russian or jailer or Tsar could invade. Such is the value of liberal thought and broad culture when shut up from all human companionship, bringing comfort and sunshine within even the four walls of a prison cell. As women at times share a similar fate, why should they not have all the consolation that the most liberal education can give? Their suffering in the prisons of St. Petersburg, in the long, weary marches to Siberia, in the mines working side by side with men, surely call for all the self-support that the most exalted sentiments of heroism can give. When suddenly roused at midnight with the startling cry of "Fire! Fire!" to find the house over their heads in flames, do women wait for men to point the way to safety? And are the men equally bewildered and half suffocated with smoke, in a position to more than try to save themselves? At such times, the most timid women have shown a courage and heroism in saving their husbands and children that has surprised everybody. Inasmuch, then, as woman shares equally the joys and sorrows of time and eternity, is it not the height of presumption in man to propose to represent her at the ballot box in the throne of grace, do her voting in the state, her praying in the church, to assume the position of priest at the family altar? Nothing strengthens the judgment and quickens the conscience like individual responsibility. Nothing adds such dignity to character as the recognition of one's self-sovereignty, the right to an equal place everywhere conceded, a place earned by personal merit, not an artificial attainment, by inheritance, wealth, family, and position. Seeing then that the responsibilities of life rest equally on man and woman, that their destiny is the same, they need the same preparation for time and eternity. The talk of sheltering women from the fierce storms of life is the sheerest mockery, for they beat on her from every point of the compass, just as they do on men, and with more fatal results, for he has been trained to protect himself, to resist, to conquer. Such are the facts in human experience, the responsibilities of the individual, rich and poor, intelligent and ignorant, wise and foolish, virtuous and vicious, man and woman. It is ever the same. Each soul must depend wholly on itself. Whatever the theories may be of women's dependence on man, in the supreme moments of her life, he cannot bear her burdens. Alone she goes to the gates of death to give life to every man that is born into the world. No one can share her fears. No one mitigate her pangs. And if her sorrow is greater than she can bear, alone she passes beyond the gates to the vast unknown. From the mountaintops of Judea, long ago, a heavenly voice bade his disciples, bear ye one another's burdens. But humanity has not yet risen to that point of self-sacrifice. And if ever so willing, how few burdens are that one soul can bear for another. In the highways of Palestine, in prayer and fasting on the solitary mountaintop, in the Garden of Gethsemane, before the judgment seat of Pilate, betrayed by one of his trusted disciples at his Last Supper, in his agonies on the cross, even Jesus of Nazareth in those last sad days on earth felt the awful solitude of self. Deserted by man in agony, he cries, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And so it ever must be in the conflicting scenes of life, on the long, weary march. Each one walks alone. We may have many friends, love, kindness, sympathy, charity, to smooth our pathway in everyday life, but in the tragedies and triumphs of human experience, each mortal stands alone. But when all artificial trammels are removed and women are recognized as individuals responsible for their own environments, thoroughly educated for all the positions in life they may be called to fill, with all the resources in themselves that liberal thought and broad culture can give, guided by their own conscience and judgment, trained to self-protection by a healthy development of the muscular system and skill in the use of weapons of defense, and stimulated to self-support by the knowledge of the business world and the pleasure that pecuniary independence must ever give. When women are trained in this way, they will, in a measure, be fitted for those hours of solitude that come alike to all, whether prepared or otherwise. As in our extremity we must depend on ourselves, the dictates of wisdom point to complete individual development. And talking of education, how shallow the argument that each class must be educated for the special work it proposed to do, and all the faculties not needed in this special walk must lie dormant and utterly wither for want of use, when perhaps these will be the very faculties needed in life's greatest emergencies. Some say, where is the use of drilling girls in the languages, the sciences, and law, medicine, and theology? As wives, mothers, housekeepers, cooks, they need a different curriculum than boys who are to fill all positions. The chief cooks in our great hotels and ocean steamers are men. In large cities, men run the bakeries. They make our bread, cake, pies. They manage the laundries. They are considered our best milliners and dressmakers. Because some men fill these dark departments of usefulness, shall we regulate the curriculum in Harvard and Yale to their present necessities? If not, why is talk in our best colleges of a curriculum for girls who are crowding into the trades and professions, teachers in all our public schools, rapidly filling many lucrative and honorable positions in life? They are showing, too, their calmness and courage in the most trying hours of human experience. Women are already the equals of men in the whole of the realm of thought, in art, science, literature, and government. With telescope vision, they explore the starry firmament, bring back the history of the planetary world. With chart and compass, they pilot ships across the mighty deep. With skillful fingers, send electric messages around the globe. In galleries of art, the beauties of nature and the virtues of humanity are immortalized by them on their canvas. And by their inspired touch, dull blocks of marble are transformed into angels of light. In music, they speak again the language of Mendelssohn, Beethoven, Chopin, Schumann, and are worthy interpreters of their deepest thoughts. The poetry and novels of the century are theirs. They have touched the keynote of reform in religion, politics, and social life. They fill the editors' and professors' chairs, plead at the bar of justice, walk the wards of the hospital, speak from the pulpit and the platform. Such is the type of womanhood that an enlightened public sentiment welcomes today, and such the triumphs of the facts of life over the false theories of the past. Is it then consistent to hold the developed woman of this day within the same narrow political limits as the dame with the spinning wheel and knitting needle occupied in the past? No! No! Machinery has taken the labors of women as well as man on its tireless shoulders. The loom and the spinning wheel are but dreams of the past. The pen, the brush, the easel, the chisel have taken their places, while the hopes and ambitions of women are essentially changed. We see reason sufficient in the outer conditions of human being for individual liberty and development. But when we consider the self-dependence of every human soul, we see the need of courage, judgment, the exercise of every faculty of mind and body, strengthened and developed by use in woman as well as man. Whatever may be said of man's protecting power in ordinary conditions, amid all the terrible disasters by land and sea, and the supreme moments of danger, alone, woman must ever meet the horrors of the situation. The angel of death even makes no royal pathway for her. Man's love and sympathy enter only into the sunshine of our lives. In that solemn solitude of self that links us with the immeasurable and the eternity, each soul lives alone forever. A recent writer says, "I remember once in crossing the Atlantic to have gone upon the deck of the ship at midnight, when a dense black cloud enveloped the sky and the great deep was roaring madly under the lashes of demoniac winds. My feelings were not of danger or fear, but of utter desolation and loneliness, a little speck of life shut in by a tremendous darkness. Again, I remembered to have climbed the slopes of the Swiss Alps, up beyond the point where vegetation ceases, and the stunted conifers no longer struggle against the unfeeling blasts. Around me lay a huge confusion of rocks, out of which the gigantic ice peaks shot into the measureless blue of the heavens. And again, my only feeling was the awful solitude. And yet, there is a solitude which each and every one of us has always carried, more inaccessible than the ice-cold mountains, more profound than the midnight sea, the solitude of self. Our inner being, which we call our self, no eye nor touch of man or angel has ever pierced. It is more hidden than the caves of the gnome, the sacred adytum of the oracle, the hidden chamber of Eleusini's in mystery, for to it only omniscience is permitted to enter. Such is individual life. Who, I ask you, can dare take on himself the rights, the duties, the responsibilities of another human soul? Thank you for your attention. Okay, I was told to expect questions.
We should have some questions.